I highly encourage everyone to turn on their camera and really listen. Listen with your eyes, listen with your ears, really go into this deep listening, not just the active listening with asking questions for clarification and so on, but really go into this deep listening point of view where you listen intentionally.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Kristen Donnelly, one of the good doctors of Abbey Research. And at Abbey Research, we deeply believe that curiosity can change the world because it's honestly the only thing that ever has. When we get curious about ourselves and the world around us, we learn different things, experience things differently. And when we open up our minds to the possibility that different people are different, everything gets a little bit more cohesive. The human experience gets richer and we all get along better. And don't we all kind of want that, honestly? So this series is in service of that. I get to talk to people from all over the world who are different than me, which is literally every person, about something in their lives that we should know about. It's called Welcome to My World. And our guest today is Britta Lorenz, who is an international speaker, businesswoman, certified executive self-leadership coach, also a mother of two, which clearly makes her an extra superhero. She's a partner at the PDAgroup, the founder of the DACH Chapter of WiSE, which is Women in Sales Enablement of Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. She's a board member of Trust Enablement, so many cool things. But the thing we're going to really talk about today is that she is the creator of the C²LEA² framework for leadership, which I really love. And I can't wait for you guys to hear about. And through that, she supports people in gaining clarity they need to guide them towards their goals. I don't know about y'all, but part of 2020 and 2021 for Dr. Aaron and I was all around that clarity. And once we achieved that, once we really locked in that clarity, which we did here in 2021, I feel like we've taken off like a rocket ship in so many different ways. So I'm really excited for you guys to be able to hear from Britta. Britta, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Kirsten. Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello. So let's get right to it. Tell me about the C²LEA² framework.
Okay. Well, the C²LEA² framework, actually, it's C², LEA²R, C²LEA². And it's an acronym for collaborative communication, learning, empathy, authenticity and accountability, and responsibility. And it's basically the pillars we as leaders should embody when we are speaking with our team, when we are guiding people through our work. And it's a guiding principle, especially in the virtual setting where we are in right now, virtual, remote, hybrid, however you want to call it. And it's supposed to guide you and make you the leader you actually would love to be yourself and be led by.
Okay, and how did you come up with this?
That's an interesting story. And it's also a personal one, actually, because for me, remote work or virtual work is nothing new. It's not something that just happened to me with the pandemic. I've been working in this setting for like 14, 15 years. And 15 years ago was one of those moments when you don't really want to experience as a mom. My son, I found him blue-faced because he had like, he stopped breathing. And I called for help, the ambulance. And then there was this first responder and she was really, really great. She supported me through the phone. It was a whole conversation by phone and she guided me in order to be able to support my son until the ambulance arrived. Yeah. And she is actually a role model for that framework. And when this whole first lockdown happened with the pandemic, it really became present again of what happened years ago and how we should actually now support our team. I recalled this situation. I was like, hey, actually, that was a real life story for me, what I can translate into leadership right now, because she led me through this whole situation. So I was like, what did she do? What was the one thing she really supported me with? She was really clear in her way of speaking to me, in the communication. Okay. She was empathetic. She understood my fears. She felt how I was feeling. At least that's how I felt it myself. She held me accountable for what I am supposed to do now. And I was responsible in the end for my son. So that all came together. And I was like, okay, those little pieces, if I put them all together, they're a nice framework, what we can put out there. And it's easy to remember, clear. You have to be clear in leadership. So that's the framework, the guide to if you want to be the modern leader to support your team now in this, I wouldn't say new normal, in this new world. I'm not sure if it's going to be a normal. It's never going to be, but it's there and we have to work with it.
I completely agree that the idea of clarity is so important and the clear communication. And yeah. I think there's been an increased conversation in treating people like humans, which obviously is something that we're very interested in. But I'm wondering, as you're working with people now, clear communication is difficult, in person, much less virtually or over email or things like that. And I'm assuming that folks who are managing remote teams are struggling somewhat with the communication. How are you seeing your clients kind of work through the communication changes that have come with this new world?
I always encourage them to be their true self, be authentic, and don't hide behind the camera. We are speaking now with our cameras on. We see each other. I see how you're reacting to my words. I see your body language. I see not everything. I see the top part of your body. So I can actually respond to your reactions, right? Mm-hmm. And I highly encourage everyone to turn on the camera and really listen with your eyes, listen with your ears, really go into this deep listening, not just the active listening with asking questions for clarification and so on, but really go into this deep listening point of view where you listen intentionally and also encourage your team to share by leading by example again. Be vulnerable yourself, share how you are feeling. There are so many things happening in our lives right now. We can't just be the shiny, glossy person every day. There are good days, there are low days, and we have to deal with it. Yeah. And why shouldn't we share our feelings with our team to a certain degree just because we are leading a team, for example? We are all persons, we are humans. And I just read an article today about being the radical human leader. How empowering that actually can be, because your team just starts to see you differently and opens up and builds trust in a different way, and the relationships start to connect, and over the course that will lead to better collaboration and stronger team performance as well.
Yeah, there's a difference between like secret keeping and discretion. Like you can be authentic and discreet, and yes. It's one of those things that I don't think we talk about enough. Like I can say, I'm having a real bad day. There's just some stuff at home. Nobody needs to know what that stuff is, but they can know, okay, it's not like Kristen's not at peak performance today. Okay, we can all kind of come together. And so it's something that we really had to face a lot in the pandemic when we had people out. And to manage the fears of, not during the pandemic, but during the lockdown, especially here in America and in some of the early stages of the pandemic, because we're still in it. Here in Philadelphia, we didn't have as high of an outbreak as in some areas, but my folks were definitely exposed a lot. And so people would, we followed CDC guidelines. If they were exposed, they had to be out for a certain period of time. And, kind of conventional leadership wisdom says, I don't get to tell anybody else's business. But managing the fear that was happening in the building, I had to tell them if they had been, and also the CDC said it, I had to tell them if they had been exposed. Yeah. So we found ourselves in this new kind of, okay, what can I disclose and what can't I? And so it was just but we found that we legally had to tell people if they had potentially been exposed to COVID. That was taken out of our hands. But there was like this deep understanding with the rest of the team. It's like, well, so-and-so's granddaughter got COVID, so they're on COVID protocol, but hey, they can still work from home. So, give them a call if you need to, or they're not feeling great. So definitely leave them alone today. And I saw everybody else on our team step up in a way that if I had just said they're out and don't talk about them, the gossip would have started, and we would have gotten distracted from the mission. And instead, we were able to serve our customers better because I just made some really clear statements about what was going on. And it really drove home to me that difference between secret keeping and discretion.
Absolutely. I think this transparency in balance of what do I share and what's something I don't need to share because it's just too personal, for example. But if we manage to have a healthy balance there as well, there will be a total different level of understanding and support for each other and empowering each other as well. Because if I know Kirsten is not feeling well today, okay, then I step up and take over some tasks. But if it's just Kirsten is out today, I'm like, okay, why? What's happening? And my head starts to spin my own stories. And we know what happens if we spin our own stories. They are never really valuable. So I think clear, transparent, communicate. And even if somebody doesn't tell you, there are signs that you can read. Don't read too much into it, but be empathetic and just listen to what the signs are telling you. And maybe you can pull back a little bit and don't put too much pressure on your teammates at that moment of time as well.
Yeah. Being a human is an art form. It's not a science. And so we're always kind of wobbling through things and figuring things out and all of that. I'm really curious, excuse me, when you go into these organizations and have these kind of conversations, and obviously even before the kind of clarity of this model, you've been doing this for a really long time. What are kind of some common areas of, I guess, weakness that you see? Is it communication mostly that's the problem? Is it the accountability? Where do you see the patterns of weaknesses in organizations?
I think it all starts really with the communication. Like when you really start digging deep, first you hear, it's not my responsibility. It's their task. I don't know why I should be held accountable for that. But if you really start to dig deeper with some questioning techniques, you really uncover most of the time that communication is the source of many misunderstandings. And we could avoid so many things if we just, again, clearly communicate and collaboratively communicate as well. Share together. And as I said before, also use your eyes to see what's happening. For example, if you go into a sales coaching scenario, for example, and a person is already sitting there with a hunchback and head down and not feeling happy, you're not going to do a favor to the whole conversation if you are smashing them down with your data, what you have on your sheet from your CRM tool, for example. So you really have to be sensitive about that as well. And so I really think if we overcome the hurdle of communication, and if we break down these barriers, that we feel safe also to share how we feel with our management team, that we can avoid a lot of misunderstandings and underperforming projects.
Yeah. And when I think about communication and misunderstanding, and then obviously you and I are speaking, I'm in America, you're in Europe. And I remember when I was living in the UK, there was this great understanding that like every organization in Europe is multicultural. And so you're always kind of dealing with lots of different cultures. I would say it's the same around the world, even if you're dealing with everybody from your nation, like everybody's got a really weird culture. But especially with the kind of dynamics that you see, when I think about cross-cultural communication, there's a little bit more than just kind of listening well. Is part of the training that people have to go through from your perspective also kind of bringing in some extra understanding that you're talking to somebody who isn't exactly like you?
It's also to understand the values which are driving this person, because things that are important to me might not be important to you, and vice versa. So it's really understanding also what's driving the person, what's the reason they are behaving the way they are, what's really, how were they brought up? Thinking about an Asian culture, for example, many times they just don't like to share as much as we are open, we are chatty, we're outspoken. And then there are people who don't like to do that much. So it's also important to have this understanding of core values, what's driving the person, and also how do these values fit into the overall organizational culture, and what do we encourage, and what's something we don't really want to have within our teams.
I love that. So switching topics a little bit, but I'd love to know, what's your favorite part of your job?
Speaking with people.
I get that.
Working with people, supporting them, partnering with them to bring them to their next level, what they actually want to do for themselves. Not what somebody else tells them to do, but what's really driving them. What's their why? Why are they getting up in the morning and going to their job and be super cheery and happy? And if somebody doesn't really know it at this moment of time, I love to support them to uncover the hidden why and what's driving them and what's their passion.
I love it. Has there been anything, as you've been doing this coaching for so long and so much experience, has anything been really surprising about this job?
I think every day is a surprise, because there's not one situation that you can compare with another. We are all unique. And even if you assume in your own head that you will get the same answer from person A and B by asking the exact same question, you will most likely get a different one. And I think that's so nice, because it also triggers your own thought process again to reflect on how you would have answered. And yes, at the moment, yesterday, for example, answer A was the one that was right in this moment of time. But now, at this moment of time, it might be the same answer, or it might be a total different one because something changed. And that's the beauty of going through this whole process of supporting the people to really understand where they're coming from, who they are, who am I, what do I want to bring to the world, what's the legacy I want to leave. And I think that's really beautiful to support them there and partner with them to get them on the track and walk along the journey.
I love talking to coaches because I'm not one. It's not something that really drives me. I think I was a youth worker for a really long time, and then I was a professor. And I think it's like I've filled my quota in that kind of set of relationships with people. But almost to a person, this joy that coaches get of like literally seeing the transformation. I know it's important for me when I hire a coach, because I'm like, are they going to be mad that it takes me forever to do this? Are they going to be frustrated that I'm learning the same lesson over and over again? And to a person, you guys are like, no, we love doing that. We love getting in the nitty gritty. We love walking with people. So I love hearing it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. It's so nice to see how they are opening up, when they start to trust you and build this connection with you. It's just beautiful to see how they open up, how they grow. You can even see it again in their posture, in their body language. They're like sitting there, like smiling, shining all of a sudden. And the best thing that ever happens to me is when previous clients or mentees send me a text message, hey, Britta, I have to tell you something. And I'm like, okay, let's see what's happening now. And then they're telling me, I just passed my MBA. I turned in my thesis and it was accepted. Those little stories where you don't even think about it yourself anymore, but they mean the world to them. And then they remember you and share this with you. And it really shows the impact you also have on their life. Although you put simply just asking questions to get them to think about it differently and open up and uncover their real potential and what they really want to do.
The asking questions is so key.
Yes.
So, well, I'd love to know, is there anything else? We're reaching the end of our time. I want to be cognizant of that. Anything else you'd like to leave the audience with before we say goodbye?
I think one thing many people are worried about is if they are in a situation and they get scared or get the sensation of fear. In a personal development point of view, I actually love that moment because that's when change really happens. And it's when you are outside of your comfort zone, and being outside of your comfort zone, that's where you grow. So really accept that moment and accept that feeling and see what's going to happen. And trust that process, because that's really when you're going to come out of it stronger and further grown as you were before. I think that's one of the most important stories I really want to leave the audience with.
It is a beautiful place to end this conversation. Britta, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a delight.
Thank you.
And pals, if you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have, make sure to like and comment below so that we can make sure to keep the conversation going. And if you like the conversation in general and you're interested in different viewpoints and curiosity, make sure to subscribe to the entire channel, because Dr. Erin and I talk about difference and curiosity and inclusivity and change and empathy and all of those other things all the time. It has been an utter pleasure to spend time with you today, the viewer, but also my guest, Britta Lorenz. You can find all of her contact information below in the show notes on this delightful YouTube channel. In the meantime, my name is Dr. Kristen Donnelly. You've been watching Welcome to My World, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.